Welcome, one more day to space and harmony. One more chance to dive deep into the essence of true reality, the tree of lives. And remember, this is a bilingual channel, so I publish videos both in Spanish and English. And this is for those of you who have just subscribed and maybe get surprised by receiving Spanish videos. And today I'm going to be answering or completing a question which I already answered by email, but a person asked me about something very profound, and I think it's important to speak about this. He has actually a channel that he opened to speak about these subjects. His name is Kyle Matthias, and he makes also movies and videos. I leave the link for his All Seeing One podcast and YouTube channel. There we have been speaking about these subjects. And the other day he was asking me about the concept of the daimon, which originated the idea of demons. However, he realized that in ancient times it also referred to the higher self, and this is very true. And it's a profound question full of actuality, because today many people are seeking for the higher self. And in general, most people don't realize that there are higher selves which are not divine. They are more daimonic in nature, not necessarily demonic, which is the negative aspect of the daimonic configuration. And we are going to see all this in a while. And as this is an important question, I will publish an article gathering all these ideas in the Music of Wisdom blog, the Song of Reality. But first of all, keep in mind that in ancient times, in a general sense, the daimon was the mediator between the physical world and the world of the gods, the higher realms of the noetic intelligences. So it was a kind of messenger. But it was not just a messenger from the outside of the human being. The human being can also develop a daimonic, emotional and mental nature. And this was a question which was very well explained by Plato and Plotinus, the founder of Neoplatonism. He clarified many of the ideas of Plato. And Plato already said that the daimon rules the human being, and everyone has a different kind of daimon, which lodges itself in the brain, as he said. And the daimon rules the body from the brain. But not everyone has the same type of daimon, because everyone is different. Each person has a different type of soul and spirit, a different type of emotional and mental configuration. In ancient times, this was connected to the idea of the inner twins, the Atman and Shiva in India, Adam and Hava in Hebrew wisdom, and today we would say the spiritual mind and the discursive, rational, emotional mind. And both of these were daimonic in nature. This is something very few realize, because having a higher self, a spiritual higher self, doesn't mean it is the manifestation of a spiritual, divine, primordial personality. Actually, one can be very spiritual and still be ruled by lower passions. And according to Plato, for instance, when the physical body dies, the soul is somehow led by its own daimon to different places, depending on the kind of life that this soul has been developing in accord to her own daimon. Because the daimon is somehow the ruling force, and the daimon takes full command when the physical body dies. But it is always the soul, the one who chooses. And this was emphasized in ancient times because nobody can blame the own daimon for doing this or that. No, we choose. And in so doing, we submit ourselves to some kind of daimon or another. And as Plato said in his dialogue The Republic, in the book 10, each person can be given different options, and some souls can even choose the type of life that they are going to have in another life. And this is the precise moment when they can choose one daimon or another. But this implies having already a certain intelligence, a more developed daimon. Not everyone can choose consciously. In most cases, souls choose unconsciously, moved by passions, tendencies, inclinations. This is why, according to the ancients, it is very important to develop good habits in life and having a good driver, a good captain, the soul, because that's what is going to determine the daimon that will rule the movements of our destiny. Actually, there was an ancient sage, Heraclitus, which I've already mentioned several times, and he said, character is for man his daimon. Many translate the character is for man his destiny, because the daimon was in ancient times associated with the different destinations of the soul. It determines even the experiences that we are going to have. And this is not something fully fixed. We can change our character, and therefore we can change our daimonic constitution. It is malleable. We can work on our inner psychological dimension in order to clarify the inside and therefore live a more attuned life. And this is basically a work on the planets and stars within us. Because as the ancients said, the daimon is made up of astral fire and air. The astral fire comes from the planets, and it's basically the substance of the emotions. And the element of air symbolizes the light, the mental light that comes from the stars. This is why some people today speak about star seeds and beings coming from the stars, but they are not necessarily divine. This is something very important to understand, because today many are developing religions and teachings on the basis of the ideas taught by these mental beings that guide humanity since very ancient times. And as we know, most of the spiritual teachings inspired by the so-called gods and ascended masters have been deceiving humankind. The results are all over. And even if some of those light beings are not daimons, they fell into the realm of the daimons. This was something mentioned by Plotinus in his Aeneads. And he said that it is not good to call the gods daimons, because they come from the noetic realms, the realms of intelligent light. But as he says, some of them fell into a lower level because they fell in love with the daimonic reality. As many ancient teachings mention, the so-called angels, gods, messengers of light fell in love with a species of a lower degree of understanding, and they wanted to help somehow. They even mix up with the lower worlds. And of course this has to do with the fall in the Garden of Eden, because the human soul had a divine aspect. Also later falls, but especially the first fall of humanity, in which the human soul was being educated somehow. The architects established the conditions of duality so that the inner love, the inner daimon of humanity, was somehow developed in order to reach the deeper spheres. The problem is that we cannot move towards the whole being by means of struggling, by means of conditions of duality. This was the whole problem. And I call this daimonic education, which is based on choice, on having to move towards the positive and rejecting the negative. This is basically what took place in the Garden of Eden. The truth is that we cannot feel the plenitude, the fullness, as long as we keep ourselves in a state of an instability, choice, separation, duality. Realize the fullness of being is always here and now. It's never projected towards the past or the future. And this is why Plato, Plotino, and other ancient teachers refuse to regard being as a time existence. Being is what is always real, whereas existence is move towards change, is always fluctuating between opposites. And I came to realize this is even explained by the Tetragrammaton, the Yud He Vav He mentioned in the Bible, which people call Jehovah without understanding what it is. Yud He Vav He, as I've already explained, mentions three states. Yud He Vav He contains Haya, which is it was, Howe, which is it is, and Yihye, which is it will be. So past, present, and future. Therefore, when the Yud He Vav He is a reference towards the present, it is the great I amness, the fullness of being, which is outside time and space, is complete love. It doesn't reject, it doesn't criticize, it doesn't judge, but transforms everything. However, in most of the occasions, the so-called divine scriptures, which are not divine at all, refer to the Tetragrammaton as the forces that form darkness, judge, punish, that divide. And obviously in these cases the Tetragrammaton refers to movements, forces, entities, powers that may or may be not in tune with the Holy One. Sometimes the forces of nature are in harmony, but in other cases they are just division and destruction. And this is the source of many confusions. And according to Kabbalistic teachings, this world of duality in which we live is a temple where learning can take place. The problem is that we are living in a world of constriction where there is death, division, war, and there is the so-called divine justice, which is quite unjust, because the powers that inflict justice are very often constrictive and restrictive, and the Holy One is beyond all the opposites. At the end we'll see the difference between the love of the Holy One and the love of the daimonic reality. A fallen love which emerged from conditions of chaos. Actually, this is mentioned in ancient myths, and in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, we already see that there was chaos, and then the architects, the Elohim, separated light from darkness. So they started making a division. Later on they divided the species. They wanted to make the human soul in their own image and likeness, and then they created Adam containing the previous stages, and later on they formed the soul of Adam from the dust of Adama, and form refers to the world of Yetzirah, the world of formation, which is astral, emotional, and therefore daimonic in nature. So we have that the soul of humanity was daimonic. It was an astral type of being which had to learn to distinguish between two inclinations, the inclination towards the good and the inclination towards the bad. In Hebrew this is Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Atov. I prefer to say that Yetzer Hara is the inclination towards scarcity, lack, and Yetzer Atov is the inclination towards that which is more satisfying. However, keep in mind this is a condition of duality. And remember how in the story we are told that the architects thought that it was not good for the soul of humanity, Adam, to be alone, so they gave the soul different species with which Adam could interact, and he was commanded to name them, to give them names and rule over them. But as we know, the Elohim, the architects, put Adam into sleep because he didn't find an opposite help. Etzer Genekdo. This is related to the inner twinship of the soul and spirit. And here lies the problem, because the architects established conditions where different natures were mixed. Once the soul of Adam was asleep, it was divided into man and woman, which on a symbolic level is the spiritual mind and the rational, emotional thinking of the body. Eve was the body of Adam, it is said in Hebrew wisdom. Actually in Hebrew, Hava means to reveal, to show something. And it was this emotional, rational nature what became seduced by the whispers of the serpent, the energy of the serpent, which was basically daimonic in nature. So here we see again the action of daimonic influence, which still takes place, because the daimons can not only whisper evilness in the mind of people, the different psychological configurations in people are whispering within us. And we have different daimonic configurations depending on the different personalities, which are not the authentic personality, but different false personalities. And this comes from the conditions established in the Garden of Eden. And it was said in ancient times that every time we love, we generate a daimon. So the inclination towards something generates this astral force, which can crystallize and move us towards some way or another. And this is why daimons were also in charge of marrying people. So the daimonic nature not only marries spirit and soul, mind and body, but also different people, the opposites, man and woman, on a biological level. This is where the issue of the marriages and twin souls come into place. Unfortunately, there is a lot of confusion in this, because marriages can take place on different levels, and complementarities also take place on different levels. And many today are speaking about finding their twin soul as if there was just one specific person, and this is not always the case. First of all, not everyone has a twin soul, because not everyone has developed a soul capable of having a twin. And secondly, there are different types of twin soul. Unfortunately, due to daimonic influences, many are speaking about the difference between twin souls and twin flames. And I'm perceiving that in most cases, because of the teachings that they are showing, they are subjecting themselves to the influence of daimonic entities which have dark interests in hybridating themselves with people, and therefore in some cases they join people, souls, that can be somehow complementary on a physical, emotional, mental level, but they are not necessarily expressing the divine personality. Divine love has nothing to do with the daimonic world. Some even try to use the idea of Yeshua and Mary Magdalene as an example of perfect twin soul, and this is why they say they both marry and had children, but as I explained in the video, I leave the link below, this is not exactly what the teaching is explaining. Some people even claim to have a twin soul or a twin flame from the Pleiades or other star systems, and according to them, these twin souls or even twin flames guide them and give them wisdom and knowledge from the astral realms. And this is an example of giving away the access to the own conscience and will gifted by the Holy One. The problem of approaching the idea of twin souls from the New Age perspective is that it leads into idolatry. I'm not saying there are no twin souls, but this is a more expanded subject. First of all, not everyone has a divine type of soul which can find some twinness at some level. And on the other hand, there are different types of twin souls. I'm not going to use the term twin flame because that's hijacked by a very specific movement which in my opinion is daimonic. In Hebrew wisdom, for instance, there are different types of twin soul. One type of twin soul is the one that derives from the initial soul of Adam that was fragmented in pairs, and each one of these pairs in turn fragmented, split in two, and all of them would be twin souls, more or less complementary depending on the root. A twin soul is that which shares the root soul, but there are deeper notions of twin soul, and this was exemplified by Yeshua himself when he showed the true personality, the divine personality of the Holy One, and some of his disciples manifested the same soul, and obviously one of them was the so-called beloved disciple, which in my view is Mary Magdalene. In John 19 we have some evidence for that. I have already explained this in a video, but we also have the case of Thomas Didymus. Thomas comes from Tomaso, which in Aramaic means twin, and Didymus means twin in Greek, and this is because he was regarded as a twin of the Messiah. He manifested the divine personality. Those who manifest the soul of the Holy One are twin souls of the Holy One. Obviously, this does not mean we cannot have manifestations outside that match our psychological character, our mental constitution, even our spiritual origin. I deeply believe that there are souls which come in pairs with a divine mission, and we can call this twin souls, but they are very few. Not everyone has this type of soul. In any case, the manifestation of the divine personality has to do with developing true unconditional love in accord with the true wisdom and understanding of the Holy One. And only true love can make us overcome the lower passions and our daimonic constitution, our daimonic character, which is basically marked by our psychological type. When we are born, our human personality is somehow shaped by the influences of the earth, the moon, and the sun. This is why there is a cycle, the wheel, the Masarot in Hebrew, the zodiac, with 12 psychotypes. And I discovered that each one of them can be divided into three: a physical type, emotional type, and a mental type. And therefore there are 36. And then we get another round having the 72 characters, which are the 72 demons or daimons of Kabbalah. And from there we can get another 72, which would be positive, not negative. In any case, these are false personalities or incomplete personalities which have to be overcome. But we must use the positive aspect of the daimonic wheel. For instance, I am an Aquarian, and as Aquarius, I love knowing new ideas, inspiring knowledge, but I have to be very careful not to become too intellectual, or a wise agree, or a person that tries to impose a dogmatic view on others. Therefore, I have to use my daimonic personality in a positive way. But obviously there are many others, and I can only manifest fully when I take into consideration the other psychotypes, manifesting the true divine personality, which is always in the middle, could be the 13 aspect. And it always starts with true unconditional love. And as Paul said in 1 Corinthians 13, love bears all things because it's able to overcome any type of suffering without succumbing in fallen passions. It hopes for all things because it always aspires towards the greatest manifestation of the miracle in our life. Expect the unexpected, as we saw last week. It believes all things because it includes everything. So even if we see negative things, horrible manifestations, we can still believe that everything can work for not only the positive, but for the discovery of the complete in us. And true love is capable of everything as well, because only true love can transform us, can make us feel the presence of the fullness here and now, especially when we are in contact with the forces of nature, when we are not seeking for something in the future or trying to get something as we had in the past. Realize true love is not daimonic. It's always fully satisfied here and now, because it comes from the primordial source. Therefore, we must not mistake true love with eros, which is the daimonic love, born according to the Greek myth, when the Psyche got asleep in the garden of Zeus, and Benia, the poverty of the soul, had relations with Poros, which is the resource of the mind. So when the mind is trying to seek for satisfaction in the lower worlds, then it becomes trapped. And now, having said all this, let's keep conscious contact with the breath, feeling the holy life through us, realizing that even if all this is a fallen world full of death, we are not mortal beings in essence, but we are just having a mortal experience. So our essence is emanated, that belongs to the sphere of emanation, Atzilut, but it comes from the primordial Adam, the so-called father of lights. And every time we manifest the divine personality, we are his expression. But we need to remember the loving conscience that comes from the primordial source. It is a sun that never sets. And now, without more delay, remember I leave an article in the blog. And until the next day, thank you very much for listening with attention, and blessings of unconditional love and modified life, pure conscience and blissful serenity.